Hello, everyone. I'm Paradis, your host at Project Equinox. And thank you for joining me. I'm always interested in the human condition, my fascination with people. That's how I got into this business, coaching, relationship coaching, communication coaching, life, people wanting to succeed at everything. But my favorite is still the coaching, relationship dynamics, men and women, this tricky, complicated, by the way, men, women, all the same. Just very interestingly enough. Um, I'm always digging. I'm trying to understand the human psyche, why we do what we do, the things we understand, the things we don't understand. So I want to bring a topic. I call it the effect of trauma on love relationships. That's my work. Love relationships, like I said, that's my favorite. And trauma, as we all experience in life as humans, children especially, um, we experience trauma in our lives, and it creates all kinds of difficulties for life, but also specifically in love relationship, which is I want to dive into today. So some of the traumas, trauma is such a thing as assault, abuse, violence, neglect. Uh, it could be a car accident. It could be witnessing death. All these things are traumatic to the psyche, nervous system, and they can actually confuse people, create a lot of fear in life, some helplessness and dissociation, with not being able to deal with the feelings of what they experience. Or so the effect on trauma shows up in very various ways in the love dynamic. There's actually five that I want to just break down really quickly. So the first one is it destroys trust and intimacy, or it creates trust and intimacy issues, because trauma can lead to trouble trusting others and forming tight bond, intimate bond in relationships from the trauma. So people that experience trauma also struggle often with putting up their guards, like they're guarded. So it's hard for them to put down their guards and be vulnerable. They fear vulnerability. They fear they could be harmed because the trauma has them really guarded. This is a very, very common thing. And it makes challenging circumstances to maintain and attain relationships because the emotional connections with the partner is difficult. That's one. Number two is it creates emotional reactivity and triggers. I think we're all familiar with the word triggers. People like experience something and the nervous system jumps back. So trauma can cause all kinds of different triggers, state of distress, state of fear that kind of frees people up, or really sometimes I have clients telling me that with the moment we start having some heated conversation, he freezes. He just literally freezes. He doesn't speak. He can't speak. He just freezes. That's one of the response to trauma. So it's a certain situation may unintentionally, remind them of the traumatic event, and they click into it. Fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are the four big components of how people deal with trauma. Very interesting. So triggers can cause tension and miscommunication. These triggers, you have to know what they are for the person if you find yourself in a relationship with these people, because you want to know what triggers them. Otherwise, you really setting yourself up for a lot of difficulties and wondering what's going on the other side. So the third way that trauma affects love dynamics is in having communication difficulties for the same reason, right? Because trauma impacts to effectively communicate their emotions, effectively communicate their needs. And again, we know in life, communication is already tricky with most of us. People who be traumatized will withdraw out of conversation or communication, shut down, right? It makes it very difficult and leads to misunderstandings, frustrations, and very hard to resolve conflicts with people that have been traumatized and shut down. Very, very hard. So it's sort of another layer of what happens when people are traumatized. Number four is an emotional numbing and detachment. So in some cases, trauma resulted really in emotional numbing, struggle to connect with their own emotions and empathize with others. Interesting. So they have difficulty connected to their own emotion and to empathize with others. And in a relationship, that's actually quite frustrating, if not very, very damaging. So that will create a sense of distance and what is going on with this person and another challenge. And the last one, number 5, is there'll be a trauma bonding for some. So trauma bonding is when individual has traumas on both sides. Each person will sometimes come together and bond over the trauma. You have stories of people who survived a plane crash and ended up really starting a relationship together because no one can understand the survival shame, everything that they went through and the trauma of that. And so sometimes trauma bonding is people coming together because they have a certain understanding of their own trauma and can talk about it. Trauma bonding is interesting. An unhealthy behavioral pattern from the injury of the trauma on the nervous system makes complete sense, right? So it would bring us together, at the same time it would make things very difficult in those circumstances. So all the layers 5 of what happens when people are traumatized. This is why in my business, with my coaching, with all of my clients, this is the first thing I do. Not one of us gets out of childhood unscathed. Between the age of 5 and 11, the formative years we call, everyone experienced some kind of trauma, abandonment, neglect, abuse issues of all kinds. Some people have all 3. Some people have all 3 super elevated. Some people have 1. But everybody has some bits and pieces, I call it. And my point is, these things are fixable. These things are manageable. These things can be cleared off your nervous system. These things need to be taken care of, because no one can get into a healthy relationship with the baggage of their past and their past relationships as young adults moving forward. So these things pile up, and the complication of trauma would actually continue the cycle of creating poor, if not impossible, relationships. That's why it's important. This is the first thing that I do with clients: clean up the nervous system through NLP in order to be able to actually be a choice and pick life partners that are congruent with what they ultimately want. It's rather simple, honestly. NLP is super efficient and effective, and one of my favorite things to do to help people out of their trauma so they can live the life that they want, to build the relationship that they want, to build their families that they want. That's super important. That's my mission in life, to alleviate the pain and confusion between men and women, men, women, women, it's all the same, in order to live their best life. We all know that relationships are the driver for the quality of a life. What I mean by that is the statistics and data on this, that both men and women are happier, live longer, more creative, make more money, healthier, all of that stuff when their love relationships are good and healthy. Wealthy people who can't sustain a love dynamic actually feel like they're losers and failures. So it's that important. This is why it's one of my biggest focus, helping people live their best lives by making sure the relationships work, flow, sustain long term. That said, I guess, thank you for watching. And one more piece to explain to you what I do and what it takes for all of us really to get to a good life. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.